We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, trying to stay upbeat during the tough times here. Had a weird Oriole press conference. Who's the manager? I don't know, but they put the other manager up. It's weird. And meanwhile, the football team has all sorts of problems this week as they come home to take on the Houston Texans. We'll be talking lots of Texans football this week in Houston and the history of Houston. And I'm even bringing some old Allers on this week to get ready for the Texans game. In the meantime, Luke Jones is out in Owings Mills. We're going to be downtown on Wednesday at Fadley's, giving away Ravens scratch-offs, the new Matador version. I hope they're lucky. I'll be at Costas. I'm wearing my Costas shirt in Timonium. It says Dundalk on. We got to make a new Timonium one for next Monday. So 2 Crab Cake Tours stops this week. All of it brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. Also want to give a shout out to our friends at GBMC. My colonoscopy set for next month. We're now into October, so it'll be next month. As well as our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions and getting us at keeping our water clean. Luke is in Owings Mills. You're the most important guy in town this week next to Lamar Jackson, and the injury report brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energies. We get our tech service out. A lot to unpack with the Nnamdi Madubuike news. I guess the Roquan Smith news is there. Some of this would have been speculative on Sunday night to say, yeah, Nate Wiggins didn't look like he might want to play this week with the shoulder thing, or Marlon Humphrey was in the tent. So we're watching all of this, but we're wondering who's going to be on the field this week. And the Madubuike thing, man, that thing has really taken a turn in 10 days, hasn't it?
Yeah, obviously, John Harbaugh officially ruled him out for the year on Monday. That wasn't shocking, but the follow-up question, which I asked and someone would have asked because it's a neck injury, was, what can you share about his long-term prognosis in terms of 2026, his football future, all of that? And John Harbaugh deferred to Madubuike on that for him to speak on that, which at the very least, that tells you there's uncertainty. Whether this is going to be a case of does he have to undergo some kind of a surgery that he needs to continue his career, that he may need for a better quality of life, but could end his football career, right? I don't want to speculate too much, but it was very evident that there is uncertainty about his future, right? And it has nothing to do with football. He's a great player, right? He was still the Ravens sack leader at this point in time, four games into the season, with him having not played the last two.
Better hope he doesn't
But
lead the team for the season.
well, sure, yeah. Two sacks, that would tell you that this year has completely gone off the
I
rails.
would settle for 2 pressures this week on the quarterback.
Yeah, well, they've gotten some pressures, but not nearly enough sacks. But this is unfortunate. You're talking about someone who's 28, who has become one of the very best defensive tackles in the league. It's unfortunate, but at this point in time now, you have to move forward, knowing you're not going to have him this year, and we're going to see what happens. I'm not going to say he's never going to play again. Obviously, John Harbaugh deferred to him. It sounds like there's some decisions, or perhaps some more opinions that need to be gathered in terms of what his long-term prognosis does look like. We saw him on the sideline in that Detroit Monday night game. He's upright and walking and everything. This isn't like a catastrophic worst case scenario, but it can be if you try to continue your career against the best opinions of doctors and everything. So this is tough. One thing that we talked about throughout the offseason, I like their starting defensive line, but we talked about the depth factor. We talked about the fact that they did not draft a defensive lineman until the 6th round, Aeneas Peebles, despite the fact that this draft class was considered quite rich as it pertains to defensive linemen. So it was one of those spots where they didn't have the most dynamic depth or the deepest depth as far as that position group. So you lose him. John Harbaugh did confirm Broderick Washington will be back, which I don't think was shocking. It was an ankle injury that he was on the field for the end of that Detroit game. So it's not as though he, quote, left the game with an injury. So they will get him back, a couple weeks after the bye. Travis Jones, I think, has a good chance to play this week. He practiced last week, before ultimately being inactive. So that would lend you to believe that he's not terribly far away. But I mean, we talked about this in the aftermath of the game when you're reaching for your roster to see who number 69 is or who number 91 is, or, in the case of Brent Urban, you're saying, hey, Brent Urban's on the 53. I mean, that's a lot, when you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs or anyone for that matter. I mean, you need depth on your defensive line, and right now they don't have that. So the Matabike news, does that force the issue in terms of Eric DaCosta taking a look at what could be out there via trade? I think it absolutely does. But when you're talking about an infirmary report as lengthy as theirs is right now, they've got to stabilize. They've got to get some of these guys back healthy. And I think that can help inform you moving forward what you need to do. You don't want to necessarily make the first deal, but you'd like to make the best deal you can make between now and the trade deadline, while also understanding there's some urgency at work here when you're 1-3, right? I mean,
Well, if Matabike's never going to step on the field again, they've got a problem even beyond this year, right?
sure.
Like they just
Well, and that to me is where the trade factor becomes that much more interesting, because you're talking about a position that, even if you say, all right, well, we're going to draft a defensive tackle with our first round pick, and all right, if this season goes off the rails, maybe you'll be picking in the top half of the first round, right? I mean, or you respond and rebound and you're picking later. But either way, generally speaking, defensive tackles aren't plug and play to the degree that they're going to necessarily make a huge impact right away. So that's where I think the trade factor does become more interesting. But depending on who's available, and it's week 5, you're not going to have too many teams out there that are full blown selling just yet. But if it's someone that's on the level of a Matabike in some shape or form, are you willing to give up an early draft pick, right? There are always guys to be had if you want to give up fourth, fifth, sixth round picks, things of that nature. But if you want to go out and get a dude, are you willing to give up a future first round pick or a second round pick? I mean, obviously that's
well, dudes
pending.
are also salary cap issues with a team that has a lot
Sure.
of dudes.
Well, there's that. And I mean, Matabike, if he has to retire, there's still going to be cap ramifications for that as far as how you have to handle that, because you're talking about an injury driven retirement, where he's not just deliberately walking away, but he's forced to walk away. So there's cap headaches with that when you're talking about someone who's only in the second year of a 4-year, $96 million contract or whatever just south of 100 million off the top of my head. I can't remember as we're speaking, but
But he's a
yeah,
$25 million a year player.
sure.
Period.
Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about a very dynamic football player. I mean, this stinks. I mean, it stinks for him. I'm happy he got paid, but it stinks for him, and it really stinks for the Baltimore Ravens, because this is a guy that has been extremely dynamic, and over going since the start of 2023, he has 21 and a half sacks. I mean, you don't have too many interior defensive linemen
In
who
the
do
history
that.
of the game, the John
Yeah. I mean,
Randalls, the
it's just
Warren Sapps,
there
there's only
aren't
a
many.
handful of guys. Haloti was a little bit like that, but Haloti
Yeah.
wasn't a sack machine.
Right, he wasn't. And generally speaking, even the ones who are that, it's not for a long period of time. I mean, and look, I mean, Matabike had his career year 2 years ago. He didn't have as many sacks last year. We understand that, but there's also a lot of nuance that goes into that, especially for interior guys, because it's way easier to double team a defensive tackle and all of that. So, it stinks. I mean, again, a 4-year,
Well, that's part
$98
of that's
million
what
dollar
made Roquan
contract.
better, right? Like in a general
It's
sense,
all
and the same thing
related.
with Ray Lewis back in the glory era. It's one thing having Sam Adams and Tony Siragusa in front of you. It's a whole lot different if you don't.
Yeah. I
Guys
mean,
getting pushed around, it's different up there.
it's all related, right? I mean,
Even the
it
Kelly
really.
Greggs, even like the lunch pail guys that were good 3 to 5 year players here between, let's say, 25 and 30 years of age. Like, that's kind of where that sweet spot is. And that's why Matabike this year and next year were poised to be the best 2 years you were going to get out of his career at a time when you have Roquan, you have Kyle Hamilton coming on, you still have Marlon Humphrey around, you have Lamar in his prime, you have the Zay Flowers and the Likeleys and these other guys working out into their primes. And I would say this for the defense, Luke, and how the complementary part of the football thing is losing the rush, losing the run game. You'd say, well, we got Lamar on offense, we're good. And then the other side of the injury report, at least for this week, is The Lamar hamstring, not good. The
Yeah.
Ronnie Stanley thing, not good. In general, the offense hasn't been good. In general, when the offensive line has been healthy, they've struggled. Derrick Henry not touching the ball. Just there's so much football. There's so much meat on the bone with 1 and 3. But the
Yeah.
injury thing's all I can smell right now because that's not a 1 week thing or a 2 week thing. That's a next 5 or 6 weeks thing. And when you're 1 and 3, there's no covering up. You know, let's be honest, they go 3 and 3 the next 6 games. That's good. That's treading water for where they are. 3 and 3, fine, all that. Yeah, and then they wake up and they're 3 and 5, and that kind of stinks. Or, or
Well,
or 4 and 6, and that kind of stinks. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the one thing I'd say, I mean, it's really all about getting to the bye week as it pertains to the injuries. But
Splitting these two, making sure you're not 1 and 5,
you
right?
need to try. Yes, you can't be 1-5,
And
right? I
this
mean,
week's got to be the one you win.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
this is a better matchup for you than the Rams coming in.
sure. I mean, the Rams have looked like one of the best teams in the NFC, one of the best teams in the
Who's going to
NFL.
guard Puka Nakua? That's what I want to know.
I mean, they have Devontae
Yeah.
Adams as well, although he's been banged up here recently as well, so you never know. But I mean,
But mismatches are a problem for this team right now because they had
sure.
special players for that purpose that now have
Well,
been relegated.
or they have special players for that purpose who haven't played very special. In the case of Marlon Humphrey, who, even before the calf injury on Sunday, I mean, we didn't talk about it a whole lot. Kansas City went right after him. It was clear they saw what we saw in the first 3 games of the season that, I mean, Nestor, and I've been higher on Marlon Humphrey as a player than most, even at times where, 2 years ago where he had some injuries and wasn't playing at his absolute best.
I feel
I
differently. I just so strongly dislike him as a
well,
person that
but
I
I,
watch it from the outside and just say, I expect a lot out of you, dude, because you run your mouth. You've been a complete jerk every time I've been in a room with you when I witness it. So, like, I look at him and say, the light's a little brighter on you because of your position, because of your veteranness, because of the part of this where you're supposed to be this special player that when you fail to be that on an island for this team and the ball is going over your head. And I do think he's injured. I mean, as much as it is what it is, I don't,
oh, he's definitely injured.
he's injured. So, I mean, I can't even pick on him about getting picked on, but I'm seeing what you're seeing, which is the other coaches know what's up, and
He's
he
been
is a
bad.
liability now. He is a lie. As it currently stands, he's a liability.
I mean, I would venture to say he was one of their absolute worst starting defensive players through the first 3.5 games, right? Even before the calf injury on Sunday, he's been that bad, and he was excellent last year, right? I mean, he was a Pro Bowl player again last year after 2023 was injury plagued, and we talked a lot about where he was. So, and not to pick on him too much because he's not alone, but they need their they need their stars to be stars, especially when they're on the football field. I mean, I don't think Roquan Smith's been very good going back to last year. Relative to expectations, relative to contract.
Well, you talked about that the day he was signed. It was a lot of money for a linebacker, and that whole Ray Lewis level of expectation in modern football and what was going to happen in their defense and the way they wanted to play and who was next to him. I saw
Yeah,
Patrick Queen making plays the other day at 9 o'clock in the morning over in London, and I'm thinking to myself, you couldn't pay them both. I get all of that from a
sure.
personnel standpoint, but it it was a better defense here 2 years ago.
It was. But I would also venture to say if you ask Pittsburgh fans, Patrick Queen hasn't been great there either. So
Correct.
and you would say, well, he's not playing next to Roquan Smith. So there's a give take. And look, let me be clear. I want to clarify for anyone who's listening. I'm not saying Roquan Smith has been a bad football player going back to last year. I'm talking about what the play has been relative to the contract. And I think 2022, he was phenomenal when he arrived. That's why they signed him to the deal they did. 2023, they had arguably the best defense in the NFL, certainly one of the best 2 or 3 defenses in the NFL, basically by any metric you want to look at. Last year, we saw what happened. Now he was better late in the year as the entire defense was. And this year, it's great against Joe Flacco and the Browns. Other 3 games of the season, not so much. But he's hurt
Well,
now,
Ray Lewis
and he's not on
chirping
the
in his
field.
ear that whole day and all that. I would just say this with Roquan Smith, and this is what I said the day they dealt for him, right? I'm thumbs up on this with DaCosta. I was like, a brilliant move. You got somebody's lottery pick and didn't have to give one up. Then you have to pay him, and then you and I talked about that value versus the cap. And at that
Hmm.
time, they were still screwing around with Lamar. They didn't have Lamar signed, and they were in the middle
Sure.
of all of that. And they give all this money to an outsider. And I said to you at the time, I'm like, it's kind of weak if you have to import a heart transplant for your defense, that you have to get the Bears star to come in and be your lion. You know what I mean? And I don't know who their lion is. And we watched a lot of this with Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, and Suggs vying for that role, playing that role where every imported guy they would bring in would come in here and say, there's not a lot of oxygen. Even Dion, there wasn't a lot of oxygen in the room when Ray Lewis was in the room because Ray Lewis is one of the greatest players ever,
Yeah.
one of the greatest leaders ever. We've seen all that, the dancing and all that. I didn't expect that out of Roquan, but I think there was a point where they brought him in because Marlon Humphrey is a pretend leader and completely a pretend leader. Anytime Marlon Humphrey, Terrell Suggs was a pretend leader too. So anytime that they tried to step into that role of alpha lion leadership thing, leading the little huddles and all of that stuff, like that's so organic as far as to what that is. And we talk about the Orioles, like where's the leadership in that? Who
Yeah.
who's the clubhouse captain? Who's the Kevin Millar? Who's the cowboy up? Who's the straw that stirs the drink? Does it have to be a great player? Does it have to be an everyday player? And football does. And the Roquan thing for me was always he was employed to fulfill that role from the outside in. And I thought he brought a lot. I mean, when he showed up, it felt like there was a different dude on campus. It really
Yeah.
did. I mean, I felt that way, and I thought, well, they know what they know, and they know that they needed this piece, and they went and imported it because they couldn't draft it. They weren't bad enough to draft Roquan Smith, right?
Yeah.
So bringing him in, I'm a couple of years into it. I'm a little disappointed with that part of the Tiger sauce to look at it and say, has he played to Ray Lewis? Well, come on, man. I wasn't expecting that, but I
Sure.
was
Sure.
expecting this cohesive part of I miss Patrick Queen. I'm going to get Simpson to play better. I'm going to get Buchanan to play better. The backside. I mean, Kyle Hamilton's their leader, right? I mean, and he is
He's
so
yeah.
quiet and so dignified and so above the fray. And even he said something last week that the fans got all up in arms about or whatever. But like, he's the only guy in the locker room that showed up. I mean, I'm kicked out because they won't let me. I don't send you. So in Kansas City, they got John Jenkins stepping. I mean, everybody is sneaking out the back door the way Mark Andrews did. And that is, I, I'll speak to leadership and I'll speak to Chad Steele's arrogance and Eric DeCosta's disappearance and John Harbaugh's dishonesty. I'll speak to all of that from the leadership and the Justin Tucker cover up and just all the crap that they do out there. That's awful. There is a point on the football side of it where I do look to the leadership and say, who's running the place, who's in charge of the place, who is getting guys on and off the bus from a player standpoint to stand, because I saw Rod Woodson, I saw Shannon Sharp, I saw Tony Siragusa. I've been around real men. I've been around leaders. I've seen it. I've been around a lot of these cats, and I'm watching from the outside. And this is one of my problems with the Mansolino thing and the Elias thing that really rubbed me wrong on Monday. My nose doesn't smell any authenticity or any leadership. And for the Ravens right now, and I've been long winded about this, I would just say at 1-3, who's going to step up? And it ain't Roquan because he ain't playing this week, right? And it
Yeah.
might not be Lamar because he might not be playing this week. So who is going to come in and be a leader on the field when Harbaugh has that bewildered look on the sideline to say, who's leading us when the corner's tapping his head and saying, I don't know the play call,
Yeah.
yelling from the backside, what are we in? What are we in? And the
Yeah.
quarterback's getting delay of games on the offensive side. I mean, dude,
It's not
this
great
whole
right now.
thing, this whole thing is a house of cards from Sashi Brown and the owner out on his yacht and how people are treated in his building, how women are treated in his building. I've seen it. I know it all the way down, how I've been treated. And now they're losing, and somebody better step up to stop the bleeding beyond Kyle Hamilton being the only guy to show up in the locker room after a loss to another loss to Patrick Mahomes, and everybody's hiding. And I guess I'll defer and say, how's Lamar? Because that's really the only thing Anybody tuning in this week, the only thing that matters is if Lamar's playing on Sunday, they have a chance. If he's not, they don't. And all the rest of it's eyewash at this point.
Well, I mean, we're going to find out. I mean, it's certainly, and I'll push back a little bit in saying
Just
if
don't
you
push
don't
back on how they treat women in their building because I
no,
know.
I'm
Because I know.
not addressing
Yeah.
that.
Well, I will. I'll be happy to.
I'm trying to keep it on the field, Nestor.
Yeah. But I
I'm
think
talking
off
about
the field leads to on the field in a lot of ways. A lot of ways.
I,
How the tone is
if
set
they
for
were
what.
if they were that dysfunctional and they were that devoid of leadership, they wouldn't be as good as they've been
But
for as
their
long as
leaders
they've
aren't
been.
even going to the field this week, is my
Yeah,
point.
fair.
That's hard.
If we're gonna, yeah,
Their leaders haven't been great leaders in that way. In that way.
in what? Because they got hurt?
No, when they lose, they're not.
Fair
You
enough.
can't be found.
Well,
That's when I learned the most
go,
about
go,
everybody.
I'll throw this out and then I'm going to continue on. But find me the first post game loss quote from Broquan Smith so far this year, and he was hurt Sunday. So, but he didn't talk after Detroit. He didn't talk after
Well, that's
Buffalo.
not leadership.
Anyway, so
That's just not leadership. That period. That's why I go back to 22 and say when they brought him in, I thought he was a dude. It felt like a dude in the beginning.
But you know what? I would also say Ray Lewis was good for one of those a year or two, and you know that Ray Lewis. There were times he snuck out the back door a few times over the course of his career. Now it wasn't every game
Nah,
though.
dude, over 20 years, I can't put
He
that
did
on Ray.
He did it a few times.
No, I mean,
though.
I have my issues with Ray, but I ain't gonna take that with Ray. I mean, Ray for the most on times when Ray couldn't talk,
I understand.
Ray showed back up Tuesday morning and apologized for it because Kevin Burns said,
but
"Come on, dude. Come on, dude.
I know, but I want to be historically accurate.
Be a man.
I want to be historically accurate. There were a
That's
few
fine.
times over the years Ray Lewis did do that, but yes, it was certainly
I
not
can
an
count
everyday.
him on a hand over.
It was not an
18 years of playing.
every game thing. And by the way, Roquan this year, he's talked after losses in the past. So
Ray Lewis would stand in front of me as a man and acknowledge it probably wasn't the right thing to do.
I also want to,
and I don't think that Mark Andrews would even acknowledge that while he makes his USAA ads.
I also think we have to acknowledge leadership for a football team runs way beyond just talking to the media. It's part of it, but it's way much more than
100%.
that. Much more than that.
When Marlon Humphrey's running around the team
because you can
with
also
a live Instagram, sticking it in guys' faces, and they're clearly like, Marlo, get your ass in the back and have some Jello. Get out of here. You know what I mean? Like I see all that they do in social media, and I just wonder where their Shannon Sharps, Tony Siragusa's, where their leader of men.
It's kind of a different game now. I mean, look. I feel the same way about some of the stuff that you see on social media, or a player puts out a podcast the next day and kind of is like, ho hum, we lost, whatever. But I also think that's, some of that's just generations change, right? I mean, it is, but
I love Kyle Hamilton because I think it's authentic. I feel that from I don't feel like there's anything informative going on with him.
You and I didn't talk about it, but the comments that he made last week, and he addressed it right after the game and even apologized to fans. He made a comment saying, Ravens fans are he thinks Ravens fans are a little spoiled. Look, his overall sentiment, if you actually want my honest opinion, I don't know if I'd say it's spoiled as much as I do think some Ravens fans have lost sight at times. I don't think this is necessarily the time to point that out because it has been that bad these last few weeks, but I think they have lost sight in recognizing how good they have had it over the last 25 years relative to most franchises.
And how hard it is to do.
Sure, no question. So, but I think his word choice, it was the wrong time, the wrong messenger, the wrong place for that. And he apologized for it. And I think it's fine. And the fact that I
didn't even mind it. I like that. I like that he's authentic. I like that he's the same guy all the time. Flacco, to the end of the day, the reason I love him so much, always the same cat.
You know what?
Always the same guy. Win, lose, interception, Super Bowl MVP, benched, passed over, 41-21. Same. That's leadership. That's why he's still starting in the league, because it's not the skills. It's not. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that he gives him the best chance to win. But there is a point where you want that. You want that. You need that to win.
You do. He might be the worst starting quarterback in the league at this point.
100%. I don't disagree with that.
I mean, if the Browns had any kind of anything at quarterback right now, Browns would actually be interesting in this division because their defense is legit. But to bring it back to the Ravens, I mean, This is when you find out. I mean, we've talked about this concept going back to 2019, and we've talked about this. And let me be clear, when I use this terminology, I think they've been a front runner kind of team. And what I mean by that is when things have gone well, and my goodness, save for the 2 years where Lamar got hurt, and I don't mean right now, because those 2 years where he had a season-ending injury, suffered in early December. I mean, when things are good, they've been really good, right? That as far as the regular season, the role that they've gotten on. I mean, they had a 12-game winning streak in 2019. They did what they did in 2023, being the number one seed. When things are going well, they go really, really
Well,
well.
they
And
go well in September, and October, November, December. They go well into the third week of January. And then when they go bad, then what happens? They win
all
a
the
lot of
season
games
ends.
here, dude.
Yeah,
They don't know
right.
how to lose.
But I
You say
think,
spoiled. Yeah, I mean, the fan base is spoiled, but so is the organization, in that the organization doesn't know how to handle turmoil
but I
and
think, but but
problems,
but I
choppy water.
think where the question comes, and you just alluded to it, where what they're dealing with right now, as far as like they lose their aura, they really get their feelings hurt. That's generally speaking happened in January. There's no coming back from that until the following season when it happens in January, right? Your season just ends. I think the difference that we've seen, and look, they've lost games, obviously. They started 0-2 last year, but the 0-2 last year is way different than what this 1-3 is right now. The 0-2 last year was you lost in Kansas City by a toenail, as far as having a chance to win the game at the end. And the following week, it was that weird, fluky Ravens beat themselves kind of thing, right? This year, their three losses, Ravens collapsed in the fourth quarter, week one against Buffalo. We've seen that, right? We've seen that story. We talked about that a lot in week one and week two, as far as just that kind of a loss, feeling like that's happened too many times. That wasn't what happened against Detroit. Detroit, it was a tie, it was a close game into the third quarter. Detroit really handled them over the final 2 quarters of that football game. And then what happened in Kansas City? I mean, even before the injuries, that was trending towards, they just got their butts kicked. I mean, point blank. There's no Ravens beating the Ravens the last 2 weeks. They got beaten by teams that were better than them. I mean, Detroit, I think, is better than them overall. And Kansas City, despite the fact they had a 1-2 record as well, they showed their championship medal. And it helped getting Xavier Worthy back. There's no question about that.
It also
They
helped getting
showed you
Lamar off the field, getting Ronnie Stanley off the field, Roquan's off the field, Marlon's
they were
like
already
Adebike,
they
the
were
injuries.
already yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I
sure,
mean,
of course. I mean, well, it's why I wrote. That's why I picked Kansas City. They were healthier. They were healthier. They're more experienced. They're a smarter football team. All of that.
they were home.
But what's that?
They were home.
Oh, Hope. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Well, I mean,
But yeah,
the whole part that the Ravens
sure.
were favored on the road is like sort of
Oh,
okay. They
well,
haven't won this game ever, right?
well, that's I said it to you in the aftermath. That's where I was, and I don't even think it was so much locally, but I think so many of the national pundits that just pick games. I was like shocked how many were picking the Ravens. That you're giving the Ravens all this benefit of the doubt, yet you're quick to bury Kansas City. That fell a little backwards to me. Not that the Ravens going into the game should have been
You do know
buried.
that Kansas City stunk all last year and almost went to the Super Bowl, had a chance. Yeah, like
Well, you mean they stunk going 15-2?
yeah, they
I mean,
stunk
yeah,
all year last year and
yeah.
went to the
Well,
Super Bowl,
and now
that's why they shouldn't be any good this year.
and
Like
now
you
that's
talk
where
about being spoiled. Oh my God, the
yeah.
Kansas City fans, if they don't go out and win 40-20 every week, the sky's falling in Kansas City,
Well, and
right?
I think you're starting to see that transfer over to Philadelphia a little bit
Oh,
in the way
sure.
that no, in the way that the Eagles are winning games, but they're not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing way that they're winning. I mean, obviously the post game chatter was, they targeted AJ Brown a bunch, but he had what 2 catches for 7 yards or whatever it was, and he puts a quote on social media that indicates he's not the happiest, and everyone's like, well, Philly, oh, they've won all these games. So I mean, it's like up to like 18 of 19 or 19 of 20 counting the postseason. I don't know. I
Yeah, you're
heard
a
it in
Super Bowl
passing.
champion. You're in first place. Shut up, dude.
No, no, no. I
Right?
mean, this is how everyone else perceives it. Like
Yeah.
not even Philadelphia fans themselves. I think it's more just like how the football world perceives it. I mean, 2 years ago. I mean, this is why I said with the Ravens being 1-3, it's obviously so much more magnified when a team starts 1-3 compared to losing 3 out of 4 in November or December, like the Chiefs did 2 years ago, right? I mean, everyone was ready to bury them. Oh, it's the Ravens' year. Kansas City's so down, they're probably not even going to win their first playoff game. And then before you know it, they're beating the Ravens in Baltimore to go back to the Super Bowl. So, but to bring it back to the Ravens, we're going to find out about this leadership because this is rare territory for this group at this point in a season. And again, I get it. People will say, well, they started 0-2 last year. The eyeball test is different. The optics of this, how it feels is way different than how last year felt. And now you take all these injuries into account, which, look, Matabike aside, these aren't long-term injuries. I mean, the NFL Network reported Roquan Smith has a grade 2 hamstring strain. Okay, he's going to miss at least the next 2 games. They have the bye week. You'll see where they are at that point, and maybe he has to miss one more after that. But the point is, they haven't suffered 8 season-ending injuries. We're not at that kind of a
Well, if they
level
lose
yet.
the next 2 weeks, they're 1-5 at the bye. Getting Roquan back, getting whoever they would get back at that point. They got 2 hours of football here the next 2 weeks to keep the season alive and not have it really.
I mean, not be in a position where you're talking about in the terms that we talked about the Orioles in beginning of
Cooper
June.
Rush plays on Sunday and they lose 23-16 to Houston at home. What are we talking about on Monday?
How's Lamar's health? I mean, like literally, we're talking about Lamar's health.
But what are we talking about? We talking about how do they get to 10-7?
Uh,
Like, is that what we're talking about?
might be,
Yeah.
might be at that point. Well,
Yeah.
but I would also say, you know, do you think Pittsburgh's going to be much better than that? I mean, I don't think Pittsburgh's bad. Let me be clear, but I can't say I sit here and I've been overwhelmed by what I've seen from them. You know, Cincinnati showed you who they were once again on Monday night, got their butts kicked. All the talk about Jake Brown, and even from guys like me who thought, oh, he's a pretty good backup quarterback, hasn't looked that way this year.
Well, let's go through it for this week on the injury report, just because we're going to get back together
Sure.
later in the week. I have all these Houston guests coming on. Luke Jones is here. He's Baltimore Luke. We're going to be at Fadley's on Wednesday, brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I'll have some Ravens scratch-offs as well. Lamar, Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey. We already know Roquan's not playing.
Marlon Humphrey's not playing either. I mean, Marlon Humphrey has a calf injury. I think that the initial report from Ian Rappaport was a couple weeks. I mean, that takes you to the bye week.
Okay, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, Matabike, they're $75 million worth of player on your defense. Lamar, $50 million player. Ronnie Stanley, another 25 million on the left side.
Yeah.
So we're talking about $150 million worth of their players that aren't going to be on the field this week. And then we're talking about who is on the field and whether Derrick Henry can be effective, or what this means for Tyler Linderbaum or the other good, or what it means for Zay Flowers to be running around hoping Cooper Rush can throw the ball to him, or Isaiah Likely getting back on the field, or Kyle Van Noy getting back on the field. Even Travis Jones trying to get the other guys back. I wonder how much that matters when the 6 highest paid guys on your team aren't going to make the field this week.
Well, I mean, you're going to play the game either way, right? I mean, you're going to roll the ball out and you're going to play. They're not postponing the game. So I hear you. Believe me, I do. At the same time, the Houston Texans are 1-3. Houston Texans haven't been very good. They have their issues. Now, that doesn't mean that I can sit here with a high degree of confidence if Cooper Rush is starting at quarterback, but you also do have a lot of other good football players who are healthy on Sunday. So that's where you need to lean into that. I mean, we're going to find out. I don't think Lamar is dealing with a major hamstring injury here, but, it's a hamstring. And, generally speaking, if you leave a game with the hamstring, the following game is in jeopardy. Now, maybe he gets treatment and maybe by, I don't know, Thursday or Friday, he's on the practice field and looks okay. And they were being extra cautious when they pulled him from the Kansas City game. And then he's playing.
He will not be able to run at full speed on Sunday based on ice. So the fact that he doesn't have that part of his game, that's just the most special part of his game that you really change what they can. Even if he's on the field, he's not Lamar anymore. He's more
if he's nowhere close to that, then he shouldn't be out there, because that means there's a high setback risk, which, as much as you want and even feel you need to win this game, if it's at the expense of Lamar having a grade 2 hamstring or something worse than that, and he's out 2 months, then your season is shot. So that's what I where I said there's a fine balance here with some of these injuries right now where, you have the bye week coming up in a couple weeks that will afford a respite and a chance for guys to heal and to feel better about the health of your football team coming on the other side of that. But if you're 1-5, I mean, it's not over, but it's OV, OV with half an E, that you would need to get on an absolute roll at that point in time to even just, to be have a chance to win the division and be the number 4 seed or something like that.
100%. When
So
you're 1-3, the only game that matters is this week because 1-4 is just
sure,
not.
but
We're in
but
a
you
whole
also
different level of 1-4 trying to make the playoffs.
but you have to be realistic about where guys are from a health standpoint. If it's not smart putting him out there, then you can't put him out there. I mean, you can't because it's not week 18, right? I mean, if it's
Well, you'll see that right away if he can't move. I
sure.
mean,
So
the eye in the sky doesn't lie on that. First set of downs, he fades back to. You'll see it on Friday in practice out there
well,
if he can run
but
around.
that's also where you have to look at this and say, you signed Cooper Rush at the start of free agency. He wasn't someone you signed in June because there was no one better in your mind out
You picked
there.
him, yeah.
You picked him. Now, that said, I don't have a high degree of confidence in him in the way that I wouldn't have a high degree of confidence in Tyler Huntley, or if when Matt Schaub filled in for Joe Flacco and then Jimmy Clausen and Ryan Mallett and
Tyrod Taylor was in a
Tyrod
game
Taylor
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
before that. I mean, they're backup quarterbacks for a reason. There aren't 32 quality starters, let alone talking about these backups that you're suddenly going to feel great about. But I will say this, if there's one, I don't even want to say silver lining because that, it sounds disingenuous to say that, but maybe I say it in jest, let's say. If there's a silver lining, if Lamar Jackson can't play on Sunday, man, you have no excuse not to get Derrick Henry the ball and to get Justice Hill the ball. And you know what? Let's take Keaton Mitchell out of the garage and see what that Ferrari looks like at this point in time. And you go 2008 or 2018, whichever
Well, now
version
you're
of the
putting
Ravens
it
you
on
prefer.
Falele and the
You
front
got to put it on
line.
somebody. You got to put
Yeah.
it on somebody. Like someone's got to win. Like if Lamar's not out there, what? You're just going to forfeit? You know what I mean? Like you got to go play. You got to adapt. You've got to figure it out. Again, the Houston Texans are not a juggernaut. Don't get me wrong. Don't misconstrue. Don't confuse that with me saying that they're not capable of beating the Ravens. I mean, they're capable of beating the Ravens with Lamar if the Ravens aren't going to play well. If they're going to play like they played the last couple weeks overall. Their offense has been terrible, but at the same time, it's all anyone was saying about Kansas City. And my goodness, the Ravens defense made Kansas City look like the 2018 Chiefs all of a sudden, where they're chucking the ball all over the field and guys running wide open and Mahomes throwing 4 touchdowns. So, this is gut check time. And obviously Lamar's status is the headliner, but if you when you sign Cooper Rush, the thought with any backup that is worth anything at all is what? If your starter has to miss a few weeks, 2 or 3 week injury, can they win us a game or two? If they can't even do that, then
They give us a chance to win. I mean,
right.
I watched Browning run around the other night with the Bengals, and I'm like, he looked okay a couple of years ago because he had better talent around him. Oh my God! I mean, you give a quarterback no running game and no protection.
Just completely neglected their offensive line, and it's part of the reason why Joe Burrow's hurt. This is why I wasn't even high on Cincinnati before he got hurt because they don't know what they're like. They don't know what they're doing in terms of having a playoff caliber team, which, I mean, they made it to a Super Bowl 4 years ago, but in terms of taking the next step, building, sustaining, evolving, Cincinnati's clueless on that. That's why they have these windows, but then it ends. Like it just ends. Whereas teams like the Ravens, current state of affairs aside, adapt and evolve and they make difficult decisions on certain players, but then they add other guys, right? And you augment and all those
Well,
different
that's
things.
why the Eagles and the Steelers, there's been consistency in some of these
Yeah,
organizations. The Seahawks had it for a long time with
sure.
Pete Carroll. Sure.
Well, looks like they might be getting it with Mike McDonald, who's looking pretty promising right now, which I'm sure Ravens fans unhappy with John Harbaugh will be quick to note that. But I think if you're talking about a Lamar Jackson less Ravens on Sunday, you need to get the running game going and going at a high level. I mean, Derrick Henry played his entire career without Lamar Jackson until last year. And he was still a 2,000-yard rusher and played with some, okay, Tannehill was good for a couple years, but he played with some nondescript, lesser quarterbacks, and he still put up huge numbers. So why can't you do that on Sunday if Lamar can't play? Uh, your defense, that's where it's trickier, right? I mean, as much as CJ Stroud and that Texans offense have they've been pretty punchless as a unit, I guess until they face the hapless Tennessee Titans this past Sunday. But well, who's going to be out there for the Ravens? I, we talked about it in the aftermath. I mean, Zach Orr, Chuck Pagano, John Harbaugh. I think we need to put more on John Harbaugh as it pertains to the defense. I mean, he's a secondary coach. I mean, if you want to talk special teams, yes, that was his forte for most of his coaching career before he arrived in Baltimore. But he also coached secondary. That, in fact, that's what he did his final year in Philadelphia. So John Harbaugh's in on that too, in terms of given the personnel you have right now, as messy as it is, as deficient as it is in certain areas, what can you do in terms of putting together a game plan that can get you playing functional defense? We're not talking about the 2000 Ravens or the 2003 Ravens or even the 2023 Ravens for that matter, but can you devise a defense, a defensive scheme, a game plan that with factoring in your personnel and its limitations on either talent or experience, give yourself a defense that at least gives you a higher floor than what you showed last week.
The hardest part is moving parts, and you know
Yeah,
that.
and
Communicating without Roquan Smith in the middle,
I'll give
without
you one right
Marlon
now.
on the back end, knowing you're going to get beaten up front, knowing you're not going to have the pass rush you need to have.
I'll give you one right now that I think needs to happen. And this is easier said than done because I'm not sure exactly who goes into his current spot. I think they need to get Kyle Hamilton back at the nickel. One, look, I thought Keon Martin did some nice things as an undrafted rookie. He had a couple plays where he looked like an undrafted rookie as well, filling in for Marlon Humphrey. But I think, and it's risky because I don't know if Malachi Starks and Sanusi Kane, who would be the replacement, and I'm implying you would go to more three safety nickel and three safety dime. But one, with Roquan out, Hamilton presumably will be the green dot helmet guy who's relaying the defensive signals pre-snap. Two, I think it enables you to play him closer to the line of scrimmage more consistently and maybe get a few more splash plays. Look, this defense is going to give up yards and points as it's presently constructed. We all know that. But can you get a little more variance in there? Look how the Bills play defense. The Bills give up points. We saw that in week 1, right? But they also make some really big plays at some critical times. They have a dynamic factor to them that, frankly, the Ravens, even last year when they were playing well down the stretch, didn't have.
Well, you don't sack the quarterback and you don't take the ball away. It's tough.
So that's right.
The thing they've had is they've stopped the run. The Ravens. The Ravens have stopped the run, put you in bad down and distance, and beat you on third down and get you off the field. But if the ball goes over your head on third down, that's a problem.
So that's where it's risky. Look, I can't sit here with any high degree of confidence and say that if you put Sanusi Kane and Malachi Starks as your deep safeties, that there isn't going to be a ball that gets thrown over their heads. But at the same time, their defense has been bad with Kyle Hamilton being back in that spot. Not that he's been bad specifically, although he hasn't been, Detroit, he wasn't good. No one was good in that second half for their defense.
Well, it's more disruptive when he's up on the line.
I just think, I almost feel like you're in a position like, okay, you like him at that spot, but he's not able to be as dynamic. You need some higher variance. You need some good things that can happen maybe in the midst of, okay, you might give up 24 or 27 points, but if you can force 2 takeaways in the process, then that might be a different animal than, all right, maybe holding them to 20 points, but we don't do any of that. So, it's tough. I mean, and part of this is also, and we talked about this even before Lamar left with the hamstring injury, and now we're talking about the Ravens offense. We've talked about their offense. Look, they're third in the league in scoring. It's not as though the offense has been terrible all the time in its totality, but situationally speaking, whether we're talking about red zone, whether we're talking about goal to go, whether we're just talking about high leverage in the fourth quarter, they have been very, very lacking in that situational kind of football. So if you're talking about where they stand right now, whether Lamar is out there or not, how much would it behoove you to be able to run the ball better run the ball more, sustain drives a little bit more. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to end in a touchdown, but do that. Get your play count up on offense, because if you get your play count up on offense, what happens to your snap count on defense? That goes down, right? If you can control the clock a little bit better, and yes, you still have to score points. Like, you don't want 7-minute drives and then miss a field goal, or you punt from from the 46 or something like that. But if you can sustain and play a little bit more bully ball, I know they're not optimized right now to do that, especially if Stanley's not out there. But as I pointed out to you in the aftermath of the post game and the loss, they've played without Ronnie Stanley a lot over the last 5 years, and they've had times where they've played well without him. So that can't just be an excuse to just throw up your hands and say, "Oh, it's over." So they need to devise, especially if it's Cooper Rush, that you run the ball, a lot with Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and like I said, throw Keaton Mitchell into the mix. It'll quiet down some fans who've been clamoring for that. And if you're Cooper Rush, you need to use some quick game, get the ball out quickly, because your pass protection. I mean, I think they should have been doing more of that even with Lamar these last couple of weeks. Where's the adjustment been there, Todd Monken, in terms of handling the blitz and the pass rush and everything that they've been facing and struggling to handle? But quick game and play action. And if you can run the ball 40 times at a successful rate, at least 4.5 yards a carry, let's say, in which that shouldn't be unreasonable with Derrick Henry and this group of running backs that they have. If you can do that, and you can ask Cooper Rush to throw 15 or 20 times, right?
You keep saying Cooper Rush. You think he's playing, right? You keep saying that.
Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know, but
if Lamar plays, it'll be a diminished version of Lamar, right?
I mean, to some degree, but like I said, it can't be too.
But
diminished.
You say you want to run the ball. You want to run the ball. That usually means Lamar 8 to 12 times. That's not part of running the ball for me on Sunday if he plays.
Fair enough. Well, but that's also why you got Derrick Henry. I mean,
and
what's
Mitchell,
wild? It's funny. Someone pointed this out to me. I hadn't fully realized it, but I'm gonna leave you with one stat, and then we'll reconvene as we get into the practice week, and we'll see.
We always do, especially when it's troubled times.
yeah, no question. But what's wild to me is, through 4 weeks, guess where the Baltimore Ravens rank in rushing attempts? Just take a guess.
26th.
30th.
Okay.
Guess where they rank in yards per carry?
Third.
First.
Okay.
And yes, they've broken some long runs that do mess with that. But isn't that also the argument for not giving up on it? So, and look, you know me.
Look, if they have 40 carries and 2 of them mean Derrick Henry ran for 31 yards and 26 yards, and 2 of those runs that move the field into a field goal, move them across the 50-yard line. If that happens twice on 21 carries on Sunday, that's good. That's good.
Now, you also don't want 80% of your carries to be 1-yard gains either, right?
I mean, there's second and 12.
Sure.
14, right,
So there's a happy medium there. But my goodness, if there was a week that it calls for, I mean, if you're not going to ramp up your running game, even if Lamar plays running game, and I agree with you, no, you're not going to have Lamar be a heavy part of that, even if he does play. But man, if you can't do it now, considering their needs and where they stand as a football team health-wise, and doing whatever we can on offense besides just scoring points to help your defense and to try to keep your defense off the field as much as you can, then man, I don't know.
Well, it's going to be winning ugly the next couple of weeks.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, if
no
Lamar's not, and let's be clear, and I know it's truly my last point here. Just win, no matter how it looks, whether Lamar's on the field or not, whether Ronnie Stanley's on the field or not, whether any of these guys are on the field or not. You've just got to find a way. You absolutely have to find a way. And, then you do, if you could do that, then guess what? Then you'll talk about the LA Rams and the task of that.
You get to be 2-3.
Hopefully get a couple guys back healthy that can help you there. But it's all eyes on the Houston Texans, and certainly All eyes on the injury report these next few days, that's for sure.
All eyes on crab cakes for me. I'm going to be down at Fadley's on Wednesday. I'm going to be at Costas, and I'm wearing my Costas shirt in Timonium on Monday. We will have Ravens scratch-offs to give away. These are the Ravens X2 scratch-offs, $20,000 top prize, beautiful matted tickets. I will have them all throughout the fall. And of course, we have our Curio tastiness now down to number one, which was the peach cake at Fenwick Bakery. I hope you check it all out at Baltimore Positive. All of that brought to you by Curio Wellness and Far and Daughter. I've been chasing Wendy Bronfine around to get her on the show this week as well. We have the Infirmary Report brought to you by our friends at Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. If you're on the WNST Tech service, you will get that first. Our friends at GBMC have been spicing things up around here in regard to health and keeping us healthy out here in Baltimore County. I had a little nose sniffle this week, so I was like, whoa, I got to check that out. I haven't had a cold in a long time. I've been bragging about that. I'm hanging in. Everybody else is sick with the Ravens. I need to be well for Sunday at 1 o'clock. Houston Texans are in town. Luke and I are going to talk some Oriole baseball on the backside of the Elias Mancelino press conference on Monday. Busy week. Busy week. Welcome to October. I am Nestor. He is Luke. We are WNST, AM 1570. Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking. Baltimore Positive.